If you loved our last live stream in Saudi Arabia, then I've got good news for you, because we are going to America, baby. And we are going to be live from Los Angeles, inside the BMO Stadium, as one of the greatest cards in boxing history takes place. And in the main event, the best boxer in the world, Terence Crawford, challenges for his 4th weight world title against one of the hardest fights out there, Israel Madrimov. And the card is stacked with Andy Ruiz Jr., the man who dethroned Anthony Joshua, making his long-awaited return against Big Baby Miller. 600 pounds of heavyweight monsters colliding in the middle of that ring. We've also got the young superstar Pitbull Cruz defending his world title against Jose Valenzuela. Not to mention 2 of the best heavyweights out there in Martin Bakoli and Jared Anderson, putting it all on the line at a young age to find out who was going to be the future of the heavyweight division. Oh, and I forgot to mention the man, the myth, the legend. Eminem is performing multiple tracks live while I'm going to be on the live stream. I can't wait. It's going to be crazy. We'll see you there live August 3rd on the Pain Game YouTube channel. Welcome back to the Pain Game YouTube channel. I am joined by my teammates for this weekend's event in LA, Crawford versus Madrimov. How is it going, lads?
What's happening? Good, mate.
Let's go, man.
I'm already here. I thought, listen, Jordy, I'm going to get ahead of it. I'm in LA already. I'm seeing what's going on. I'm trying to get the fight vibe. We're ready. This is going to be electric. I can't wait.
Yeah, apparently there's some surprises in store for all of us. And this is how big Turkey is going for this, by the way. You know, the open workouts, he's got a few fights lined up for the open workouts just to keep the people entertained as well, which I think that might be like down by the beach or something. I don't know if we can try and catch that, but that would be...
That's mad how he's been able to just do that. Like Castro, who was an Olympian, is just randomly having a bout when the open workout's happening. That's the equivalent to an AJ fight, and Eddie Hearn all of a sudden goes, oh, by the way, Buatsi's going to have a fight at the open workout. It's mental.
Has it never been done before, by the way?
I've never heard of that done before. Never, ever, mate. That's like, it's crazy. But this is Turkey, man. And you know, Eminem performing multiple tracks before the main event has never been done before. There's a lot of things have never been done before. And that brings us on to one of the main talking points is Canelo Álvarez versus Terence Crawford. That would be a mega fight of all mega fights, wouldn't it? How big is that fight for you?
I mean, dude, anytime you're talking about Canelo, it's been number 1 or 2, potentially, maybe not right now, but number 1 or 2 pound for pound in the world for the last however long you can remember. And in the States, no matter where you go, Canelo sells, man. And so with Bud now making that rise as a pound for pound great, you know, the weight classes be damned in this one. It's big name versus big name, talent versus talent. And by the way, they're around the same age. Let's run that. You know what I mean?
And like, obviously, Canelo started his weight climb a lot, like smaller, obviously, around about where Crawford is now. And Crawford was on the Joe Rogan podcast the other day. And Rogan was like, you know, weight gain wise, how long is that going to take you to get ready for? And he just replied, I'm ready right now. And that was like... Because he's like, it's boxing, right? This isn't weightlifting. And I would be fascinated to see the tool set that like Crawford brings to the table. It's so diverse, it's so well-rounded against Canelo, who it's a bit of a rinse and repeat thing, right? You know what you're going to get from him constantly. And Crawford always seems to find the answers. But with that level of power coming back at him, I'd be really interested to see if he could actually take his time with him the way he does with other people.
When you look at the Billy Joe Saunders fight against Canelo, right? Billy Joe Saunders had enough of a skill set that for a certain amount of rounds, whether it was 3 rounds, 4 rounds, he was actually able to really impose that skill set upon Canelo. But I think that ultimately the fact that we might be led to believe that maybe Billy Joe doesn't live the life. What we do know for a fact is he balloons up in and out of weight in between fights, has a lot of time off between his fights. Ultimately, that and the peach of the shot that Canelo broke his orbital bone with was a difference maker there, and it wasn't able to prolong as the fight went on. Terence Crawford does live the life. Terence Crawford has kept himself in immaculate shape. There's no doubt for me that Terence Crawford would have massive, massive success against the Canelo.
I just think you lot are getting too far. I think you lot are falling in love with it. It's the romance of boxing. They've gone too far. What you lot are doing is ridiculous. I've been having conversations with people in cars, and it's this thing of you need to respect Canelo. While you say that you look at certain fights and you're like, oh, he keeps winning. So almost we're underrating the work that he's doing. We look at the Caleb Plant one, we look at the Triple G one, and that was a real big legacy moment for him. There's this moment in when you take bite of more than you can chew. Canelo tried it. He went to fight Bivol. Bivol taught him a lesson. It was a horrible lesson for him to learn, but he learned the lesson. He said, I ain't getting back there. What Crawford is about to do right now, while it is the smartest move in boxing, it's going to make a lot of money. Canelo is the face of boxing. Let's never forget that. Crawford is I won't call him the great pretender because I have so much respect for him. But we have to understand that is Canelo. That is not Canelo. That is in his, when people get into this breakdown of, is he over the hill, father time, this, that, and the other. Canelo will be ready for this moment. Canelo knows now he's been chasing this legacy thing. The last thing I'll say on this quickly, he's been chasing this legacy dream and it's gone wrong in the Mayweather thing. Then he said, I'm going to do the light heavy journey and beat everyone up and see what happens. He's been humbled. He will not allow this because this changes the way we have to look at Canelo. If this goes wrong, if Crawford does this, Canelo is going to be looked at in a way that he will never be comfortable with. Why he's avoiding Benavidez.
This sort of brings us on to the main event, Saturday night. Madrimov obviously is a hell of a force at 154 pounds. And if Crawford can't get past him, that people will then start to really believe Canelo is on the menu next for Crawford, because that kid, he brings some similarities to Canelo in that he's very hard to be hurt. He's very compact. He throws punches with venom. And I'm not saying he's on the level of Canelo because he hasn't achieved what Canelo has done. But I'm really impressed with this guy. And I think Crawford's got a fucking maybe his biggest test to date in front of him, in my opinion, because he's just so hard to hurt, lads.
Madrimov is dangerous. To me, this fight is what we thought the Spence fight would be.
Yep.
I didn't think any shape or fashion the Spence fight was going to go that way. I was like, okay, I have Crawford winning this fight. I didn't have him winning it like that.
Well, the thing that Crawford has done throughout his career, which always blows me away, is, and I've been watching all of his fights recently, and you see every time he moves up a weight and he has his toughest test, and this time, he makes it look easy every single time. It's never competitive. So, but if you can do that at 154 pounds, which is nearly 20 pounds heavier than he started his career at, and you continue that level of dominance, I mean, that would be magical.
I've got to repute it ever so slightly, though. I don't think Madrimov is Crawford's toughest. I don't think so. I think when you look at Errol Spence and you look at the names that Errol Spence had beat, if you didn't put Errol Spence as number one in the division, the only reason you didn't put him as number one is because you put Crawford as number one. So Errol Spence was definitely the number one in his weight division. At this moment in time, purely because of the resume, and that's not Madrimov's fault, you cannot definitively say that Madrimov is number one at middleweight,
I agree. I think speculatively, from me, it's more just, it's not necessarily the resume or anything. It's the weight, it's the size of the guy. He's got a thick neck on him. He doesn't look like he's easy to hurt. I've never seen him take a backward step yet in any fight. Now, I know he's only had 10 pro fights, and he is a little bit like Usyk in that sense of, like, he had a great amateur career plus 100 plus fights, and he's come in, but he's just looked so like a bull in there. He walks people down, pressurizes them, and kind of like that Avanesian fight, I guess, is Crawford's going to be on the back foot, and he's going to have to use those counter shots.
This is what I was gonna bring up Avanesium, and again, I want you to always have Avanesium in your mind when you do think of Canelo. But we'll focus on this Madrimov one. Boxing's been cruel to us fans. Every time we've been waiting for a fight, the next fight, guess what happens? Banana skin. Do you know the biggest banana skin in boxing? Usyk. We thought we was going to get Fury. We've been talking about Fury and AJ for the longest time. Usyk, Mr. Banana Skin, comes in, ruins the show. And this is what keeps happening. We've had it over and over again, even down to Fury versus Usyk. Banana Skin. No one believed that this pumped up, pumped up heavyweight. And we almost in the stage of we're maybe underselling what Madrimov can bring. Now, there's bits that I've seen, and I'm worried that he's one of those fighters that maybe hasn't got the respect or hasn't been, when you talk about marketing Eastern Europeans, you're like, well, who's going to care enough? Will he sell tickets? This is a bums on seats type of business. So I'm not going to push him, but he could be talented. I see the same with Avanesium. Crawford has to understand this is a massive fight, but as you lot said earlier, Crawford he's not a shortcut guy. He's going to be fully locked in, but we have to understand Madrimov is going to bring it.
I truly believe that Crawford's going to be able to walk Madrimov onto shots. When you look at Madrimov, some of his earlier fights that are obviously against lesser level guys, brilliant at closing the distance, switching stance, sometimes changing angles. But when you've seen him step up in class ever so slightly, I'm not saying he hasn't had answers for it, but he is easier to hit. Also, people hate it when I do this, but sometimes I do like to watch bits of sparring and draw comparisons and stuff. And we've seen the sparring between Madrimov and Bivol, right? And Madrimov, when he was trying to close distance, every time he was doing it, head down, coming in low, and Bivol was able to sort of tee off on him and pepper him a little bit, right? Now, what you've got to remember here is I get that Madrimov is the naturally bigger guy than Terence Crawford, but in height, he's a fraction bigger. And in reach, Terence Crawford's arms are way longer than Madrimov's, and Crawford will know how to put that reach into practice. So I believe that Crawford will be able to have success with the lead hand at range, walk Madrimov into that space. And if I see similar from what I saw in the Bivol sparring from Madrimov, which I get that it's sparring, but the comparisons are there to be made in terms of the high quality level of these guys. If I see similar there, I do think that Crawford's going to have a lot of success walking him onto shots, and when that head goes down, he's going to be able to pepper him and counter him.
One of the best counter punchers in the sport. Yeah. It was so evident in the Spence fight. I was watching just mastery of the counter punches in that fight. Even the I think it was the second knockdown, you looked and you're like, it looked like Spence landed. It looked like he just landed and then fell over. Oh, dude, he gets caught he gets clipped with a shot on the inside. You barely see it, but that's the inches of difference between great and elite that Terence Crawford possesses. And right. Again, what Joey was saying too about, Spence being that toughest test of opponents at that time, absolutely. That's what we saw. And then all of a sudden, Terence Crawford made him look, I hate to say the word, but amateurish. It was not even close. So we could be in for the same thing here, as much as we put a lot of stock into the size, into the power of the hands, into the Eastern European style. He could walk into that ring and Terence Crawford goes, got you again. Y'all pumped him up and I deflated him, right? Like, he's just amazing. Dude. He's amazing.
This conversation that we're having right now, it's very fitting that we're having it with almost in mind that all roads could lead to Canelo, because I remember going back having this exact conversation about Canelo, and I'm not even talking about the jump up to light heavyweight, I'm just talking about the jump up to fighting guys like Golovkin, fighting fully fledged middleweights when Canelo had started off as a welterweight. We had this conversation. And ultimately, once we had enough of a sample to go on in terms of previous fights, that conversation became a thing of the past. We didn't then go, let's say, for example, Canelo fights a John Ryder. We're not going, but big, strong, physical guy in Ryder, because Canelo had proven himself. And I believe that this is the first step to Crawford proving himself that he can go to that next weight division and that next level.
And ironically, Crawford will equal Canelo of having 4 different weights, 4 different world titles if he wins this weekend. We are going to move on to the co-main event. I think there's so many great fights, you're actually not really sure which one's the co-main. You're like, we'll assume it's Andy Ruiz Jr. versus Big Baby Miller. Big Baby Miller off the back of a defeat to Dubois, where he did show a lot, and it took a lot for Dubois to put him away. And apparently he's fitter than he was then. And that was a bit of a short notice fight, according to him. So he's bringing it. And Andy Ruiz, we know the ability, lads. We know on his day, he's one of the only 2 men to have beaten Anthony Joshua. And as much as AJ might have been underprepared that day, he was fucking phenomenal. It just depends on what version of Andy Ruiz shows up, I guess. What are we expecting from this fight, lads?
Bro, you're the first Mexican heavyweight champion in the world. And the money took over, the sponsorships, the deals. And that's the hardest part, because it's where Conor Ben talks about it, silk pajamas. Are you going to get up and run when you got the silk pajamas on. And a lot of people, no, absolutely not. What am I running for? So this is where it gets, I think that we don't know if the money's gone down to the bread line and he hasn't got the money as before. And there's more money to be won now. So now you're dangling the carrot of, well, there's Dylan. We have to say it now. And I feel shameless saying this, but there's Chisora now. There's now fights that like he needs to get back into the conversation. And if he does this, and I think this is a good touch for him because I just don't believe in the pharmacy. Sorry to call him that, but I just don't believe in it.
Big Baby, the pharmacy Miller.
Pharmacy.
The thing that you mentioned is that the Silk Sheets thing. I mean, to your point, he's had 3 fights in 4 years. And this is off the back of 2 years off where he's had a bit of surgery, but looking at him hitting pads, he looks fine in regards to injuries. But one of the things that would worry me is Andy Ruiz started working with Canelo's team. For me, that was this is interesting. You might get the best version of Andy Ruiz. He fought Arreola. He got rocked a little bit early on. I did wonder if the weight cut affected his ability to take shots. But for me, he was fit as fuck in that fight. And he was throwing way more punches than Arreola. And you're like, okay, you could overcome adversity. You look fitter than ever. Then he takes another year off. He comes back against Luis Ortiz. And he puts on another 15, 17 pounds. He's back struggling with his cardio. And that's where you're like, he ditched the Canelo training camp for an easier training camp, it would seem. Like, I don't think hard work, I mean, no shit, he's 270 pounds is the thing he loves most, you know? And Big Baby actually has decent cardio for a big guy. When
you talk about fitness being a problem against Luis Ortiz, remember Luis Ortiz is not a high output guy. Luis Ortiz likes to counterpunch from the southpaw stance. He's not a massively high output guy. So when I look at Andy Ruiz in this fight, of course, the problem he's going to have coming up against him is the activity of Big Baby Miller. Big Baby Miller hasn't been the most active guy. He served a ban, but what he has just done is gone the best part of 10 rounds with Daniel Dubois. Before that, he was in with Lucas Brown. He's going to be coming into this one after linking up with a new trainer. Now, I can't remember the trainer's name, but I think it's the same as Boots Ennis's trainer. And we've seen some pictures of him being in really, really good shape. So one thing that I think people would be foolish to do is to write off Jarrell Big Baby Miller off the back of the Daniel Dubois feat, because heavyweight boxing, most significantly so since Turki Al-Sheikh has came in, has taught us that you really can't do that. You really can't do that. Otherwise, Joseph Parker wouldn't have had a swan song in his career. Otherwise, Joe Joyce, the man that beat Joseph Parker, wouldn't now be looking like he's on the slide. You can't write Big Baby off in this one.
I love what Joey says there. You definitely can't. And I saw the pictures. I've seen the workouts. Big Baby looking shred city from what he has looked. He's looked great. It's just in my mind, this should be Andy Ruiz's fight all day and night. It should be his.
On
technique
talent.
For technique,
on
skill
talent,
for skill. It's not like, to me, it's not close. He's a better boxer. The problem is, you talked about this, Jordy. You talked about the 2 years, no fights. You talked about the 4 fights in what was it, 43 months or something like that. 2 fights in 43 months. It's not ideal for a guy that doesn't like to get in shape and isn't in the ring often enough as it is. You have to wonder what the motivation is. Like you said, potentially it's that slide of bread that's just not there. We're cutting halves into fourths now, so. I have to hope that the motivation's there. And if that's the case, that hand speed is ridiculous for heavyweight. His shot selection's great. I like his skill in this fight.
You know, power-wise, gents, can I just... Big Baby, in terms of what he can take, I was so impressed with the beating he took against Daniel Dubois, because Daniel Dubois was punching his fucking head in all night, and it took him to the 10th round where you're really seeing Big Baby started to struggle. For me, the question with Andy Ruiz is, yeah, we know early on that speed, that power is really going to be there. But if Big Baby can overcome that, that speed and power is going to win.
If you thought Daniel Dubois against Big Baby was a war, albeit it went 10 rounds, the Lucas Brown fight was also a war. He took a lot of shots in that fight.
His chin's unreal, mate.
Like any fighter, there does come a point when you keep chipping away at that chin and maybe it's not what it was in years gone by.
Mm-hmm. There we go. And I'm glad you lot said that, because that just brings us straight to what Joe Joyce. We spoke about one of the most secure chins in boxing, and George versus Finn told us, look, I can't take the damage that I've been getting anymore. We're looking at Big Baby, and we're like, my thing is where he is above most fighters is his dominance in the mental games. His dominance in, he tries to destroy you before you walk into that ring. And that's why I was worried for Daniel Dubois. We know Daniel Dubois is above Big Baby Miller when it comes to skill and everything. But then we're like, is he going to crack under the pressure? This New York guy that is a great talker, great speaker. He drew AJ out of, he's put AJ in a space we've never seen AJ before. AJ followed him. Andy Ruiz, I just see him as a fighter that, well, as we don't know what he's really fighting for, but he's been hard to get into the ring. So I don't think he's going to care about what Big Baby's doing. I don't think the mind games and the mental, that's going to matter. Now it's going to be about skill. So when we get down to it and the skill level, well, when I was watching in that last fight against Triple D, you're looking at that fight saying, you couldn't live with him. You were taking big shots. You were hoping. You were throwing the desperation ones, but the skill was clear. There was a big chasm. And I think this is what we're dealing with. Yes, it's heavyweight boxing. If he does land that clean, amazing shot, the whole fight changes. But I just feel Andy Ruiz is just skill level is above.
I worry a little bit about Ruiz's chin sometimes too, man.
You know, the Areola fight would worry me because Areola's not a big guy and he fucking rocked Ruiz. But I mean, I did wonder if that was losing of the weight. He lost quite a lot of weight before that fight and then he put it back on for the next one. But
let's be honest though, it's like throwing a deck chair off the Titanic, him losing weight, isn't it?
I know. Like, come on,
these guys, man. They're 600 pounds we're going to be watching in that ring. It does feel like we're all sort of leaning to the talent of Ruiz, but we're acknowledging if he doesn't show up in shape, Big Baby could get him.
Ruiz is a guy that I want to see in with all the top guys. So I obviously want Ruiz to win for that selfish aspect of I really want to see him in. I think he can compete on his day with anyone.
We'll move on to the next. This is the last fight we'll do today. It's a heavyweight fight. Jared Anderson versus Martin Bakole. Who is Jared Anderson? Is he the future of boxing? This is a real crossroads for him because if he can get the job done at just the age of 24 years old, that would be an insane win. But motherfucker, this is serious. This is a lot for a 24-year-old to handle.
Mate, I tell you what this is. This is David Haye against Carl Thompson. It's Daniel Dubois against Joe Joyce. This is that typical fight where the young guy, in my opinion, is biting off more than he can chew. And I really do understand that Jared Anderson's a supreme talent. I really rate his reflexes, the skill he's shown, the fact that he can box out of the orthodox and southpaw. But I do think that if there's going to be a big upset on the card, this is the one I'd be putting my money on. I think Martin Bakole could be the kryptonite for Anderson in this fight.
And even calling it an upset is a tricky one, right? Because it's like, I think the reason it would be classed as an upset is Anderson has been sort of named the golden boy of the future of the heavyweight division. But right now, you're not that guy, right? You look like you could be, but against, was it Charles Martin?
Yep.
There was a lot there that we seen that I was like, I'm not 100% sure you're ready for a fight like this. Wade's shaking his head. What are you thinking, bro?
Well, listen, American heavyweight boxing, we're looking for somebody, right? And Jared's that guy, and we're putting kind of all our hopes and dreams over here across the pond. By the way, when you guys come over, you know what I'm saying, we got to treat you some American delicacies, you know what I'm saying?
Yes,
I got to come this way. But Jared, I'm hoping puts on for us because this is it. We haven't had a great one in a long time, and this is kind of, like I said, where our hopes are. And there are some spots, there are some things that I worry about because, like you said, this looks like a trap fight, Joey, and it's scaring me a little bit.
Wait, I know you like WWE. And Cody Rhodes and finishing a story. This is not Jared Anderson's story to finish. I'm so sorry, bro. This is not what you want. I know you hope you got stocks and shares in the Jared Anderson story. The first part we saw was in the Roy Jones interview when he's talking about why he's fighting. And I think that's important. I think that moment, and there was like an early, not saying breakdown, but he feels the pressure. He understands America's looking for that heavyweight. They're looking for the new guy. They're looking for who's going to be our new Tyson, who's going to be our new Evander, who's going to lead the charge. again, we've had Deontay Wilder, and now when we look back at Deontay Wilder, it's like, how good was he? On the Jared thing, I'm looking at him and the last thing that he had wasn't that their car infraction as well. There was another situation. There was a legal battle recently, just not too long ago, that he was involved in. I don't know if it was
There's also been talk of him retiring early, though. He's saying things that worry you. You know, I don't want to hear retirement talk when you're 24 years old, bro. That's not right.
Well, the Roy Jones interview did it for me. I was like, when you talk about him having pressure and all this, and I was like, that's the game, man. You know what I'm saying? If you want to be a great one, you want to be the great one.
Roy Jones, that's it. Roy Jones was uncomfortable because we're talking about it's heavyweight boxing. And while I like Jared, and this could be the crowning moment, but then, when you look at the next guys up, guess what? Even in the UK, we got Fisher. We got a young guy called Atoma. Even Dubois. I'm telling you now, if he gets through this Bacoli stint, the group that's waiting for him, I'm worried.
Chill us.
I'm worried. I gotta chill, man. Y'all gotta chill. Give us one, man. Come on.
Worried for Jared Anderson in this fight is I don't believe that he's had the middle ground fights to take him up to this step. So let's say, for example, Charles Martin, yes, he was tested. And I think that to an extent, maybe I'm not suggesting you guys doing it, but I think to an extent, maybe a bit more was made of that Charles Martin test because Jared Anderson started the fight looking fairly dominant and it looked like it slipped away in those middle rounds, although he came through it. But I think that when you look at the names on Martin Bacoli's resume, right? Sergei Kuzman, I understand maybe he didn't do it as much in the pros, but he was a great amateur. You look at Tony Yoka, right? Tony Yoka took a loss by that point, but I think Tony Yoka, who was an Olympic gold medalist, would have been a big favourite in there. You've also obviously got, who did he beat? We watched it live. Takam he beat. Obviously, that was a Takam on the slide. He'd been knocked out by Chisora. But then when you look at Anderson's resume, who's on there? Charles Martin, like I said, George Arias, like I said, and the loss that Bacoli's got. And it's funny, Wade, my ears perked up there when you said about an American heavyweight that guys were pinning their hopes on. One man who's massively disrespected in that conversation is Michael Hunter. Because Michael Hunter, the man who beat Martin Bacoli, there was a short period of time, and he's gone off the boil a little bit now, but there was a period of time when I'd have stuck Michael Hunter in with any heavyweight. I think he was your leading guy for a while.
On that though, Joey, in that Michael Hunter win, that was in 2018, I think. And obviously, Bacoli's come on a fair bit since then. I think he is. I mean, don't get me wrong. One thing I would be worried about is in that Takam fight, Takam ain't a mover. Takam ain't energetic. Bacoli looked fat in that fight, right? He did. And if there's one thing about Jared Anderson, he's coming in shape. And if he can take you into those late rounds and you're in the shape you were in against Takam, because he was in good shape against Hunter and he still faded. For me, early on, if you don't hurt him and get him out of there and you're still going in rounds 8, 9, 10, 11, I don't know if he comes in with that belly, how he's going to fare it. If Jared Anderson's in his face, and because Jared Anderson, the thing I got to give him credit for, that engine, he fucking throws a lot of punches, maybe second only to Usyk in the heavyweight division. He can really pile the pressure on if he can get that head movement going and stay out the fucking way of those long limbs, because as we showed against Charles Martin, he got cracked with some long, straight punches, and I feel like if Martin can do that to you, Bacoli can fucking end it.
Do you know what we have to consider, though, in this one? Jared Anderson has to deal with, he's not just going to go over. Most of his fights is TKO, KO. He's knocking guys out. He's having fun. And when you do step up, when you do go and never level up, when these fighters are more durable, you actually have to deal with that's not worked. It's like even in comedy, you have that joke that you think this is going to work everywhere, and you tell it and the room doesn't laugh and you're scrambling in your mind. You're like, this is now I'm in uncharted waters and I don't want to bomb. But then that's what he's going to be in the ring. And as you said, the pressure. If this guy, this is almost his Big Baby Miller. This is almost as Daniel Dubois, Big Baby Miller, proving myself to say, hey guys, you're going to acknowledge me in the months of the new guys, the new crop of heavyweights. I am now one of them. This is why
do you think it's bigger?
Again is exciting.
Do you think it's harder? Do you think it's a harder fight than Big Baby? Do you think, because remember, Daniel Dubois basically got a title shot off of beating Big Baby Miller. Would this put Jared Anderson in that future world champion bracket where we're like, okay, you're on the fast track now, because we know
100.
Turkey has made him an ambassador for Riyadh season, which kind of says we're hoping for good things from you. So if he does overcome Bakoli, what's the future?
100% it's a harder fight, because or at least on paper, I think it's 100% a harder fight, because what we got to remember here, right, is Big Baby Miller could sell a fight against my nan. Like, Big Baby Miller's a brilliant fighter. It almost a brilliant seller of a fight. It doesn't always matter who the opponent even is, because Big Baby Miller can get up there, he can talk, and because of what he's done in the media and because of what he's done when he's had the limelight shone on him, he's obviously a bigger name in boxing than a Martin Bakoli. But the truth and the cold hard truth about Big Baby Miller is his best win is what? As I say, is it Lucas Brown? Radenko? Who has Big Baby Miller actually beat to be able to say that? Whereas with Martin Bakoli, you're coming in with a guy who I've just named 3 guys that he's been in there and got a win over. Also, we talk about the Michael Hunter fight. I remember that Michael Hunter fight. Michael Hunter come on strong late, stopped him. It's not like he was dominant at any point. Fun was not something Michael Hunter was having against Martin Bakoli. And also, again, people slam me in the comment section for doing this, but I am going to bring up sparring again. There's a reason why he's got this notoriety around him in the gym, because Martin Bakoli has given everyone the business in sparring as well. So I think that Martin Bakoli, in the short career he's had so far, has showed more for me to say that he's more of a dangerous threat at heavyweight than a Big Baby Miller is.
Yeah, it feels like Turkey's kind of gone, let's find out what this Jared Anderson kid's really about here.
You know what
Turkey thinks that Anderson's doing him within 5 rounds. I've seen the interview this morning. Eddie Hearn says to Turkey Al Sheikh, you've made a mistake there, mate. I think it's too early to be sticking Jared Anderson in with Martin Bakoli. And Turkey says, no. He says Anderson within 5-6 rounds. Listen, I'd be shocked. I'd be absolutely shocked if that is the outcome. I've got to be honest with you.
This is why one of the greatest things for boxing, you have to say, is Turkey. Because you know why? What's happening? You can't hide. We're not getting to do fantasy fights. We've been speaking about fights for 3 to 4 years. We've been talking about, I don't know, Yard Boatsy, Fury versus, and guess what? Now you make these guys fight. You know who everyone is.
Because Turkey has signed all of these promotional companies, Top Rank, Golden Boy, Matchroom, Queensberry, all of the fights can now be made. So the journey to becoming number one feels a lot more realistic for these young fighters, as opposed to, you know, you can do what you want. If our promoters don't agree on a fee, we're never ever going to fight. So it's changed the whole game, man. And lads, I'm really looking forward to the weekend. I can't believe we're going to see all of this inside the stadium. You know, we did it in an arena last time. This time it's a fucking stadium with Eminem playing. I've always wanted to see Eminem. I never thought it would be on my live stream that we actually made this a reality. The times, for anyone who wants to know, it's 1 a.m. I think we're starting in UK time, and then 5 p.m. LA time. So hopefully that helps anyone out. Big thanks to the lads for joining me to preview this today. Big love. Absolutely. I can't wait for this. Don't forget, hit the like button, stay subscribed to the Pain Game YouTube channel, and we'll see you on the next one.